I remember praying that I would die. Trying not to get choked up here. I wanted to see if Joseph Alexander versus the world, who's coming out.
You're coming up with your own agency.
Yes.
What were those early moments like for you? Were you excited?
I felt just this like the god of war in my chest. I'm like, I'm gonna go build the next big agency. It was just me in my studio apartment, where my bed is, and my kitchen is, and my desk is, and that's where the Uptown Agency was born. It was just me.
For people who don't know who you are and what you do, how would you like normally describe that?
Ooh, man, that's a tall order. Brass tacks. My name is Joseph. I'm the founder of the Uptown Agency in Dallas, which is like a full service boutique growth marketing agency. So everything from strategy to design to creative to digital to PR to production work, we do it all. I've spent the last 9 years growing that company. I'm now the president of a new entity that we've just launched called Uptown Brands, which actually invests in the direct-to-consumer product companies that our agency supports. So like Live Audio, the over-the-ear headphones is one example. Snaps Clothing is an example. Miracle Mama Cookies is an example. And so that's really fun. My background was actually in banking and VC, so it's kind of a nice marriage between like a past finance life and this growth marketing builder lifestyle. And so I think that's a pretty good, I think from a professional perspective. Personally, I am a husband to my beautiful wife, Megan. I have a beautiful son. His name is Damon. He's 16 months old, and he's just like the light of my life. When I come home, he runs at me and has his arms up, and so that's a beautiful thing. I got 2 retrievers. I live in Dallas. What else do you want to know?
No, that's cool. In regards to like Snaps Clothing, so
Yeah.
I was watching. I was looking at a post you made on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and you were talking about. I think you posted Landman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how it was they were showing on Landman, and then you were talking about a little bit about
Yes.
your father and
Yes.
how he was a country singer.
Yes.
And he was also an entrepreneur, right?
No, just a country singer.
Just a country singer.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Can you talk to us about like your upbringing? Because I want to know I want to know how you got to
Yeah.
your agency that you have now. What was your upbringing like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, we have our resume that people look at, and they make assumptions on that, and then we have reality. And I think that is kind of the dual worlds that we have. Who we present and who we really are. My dad was a country music singer in the Fort Worth Stockyards. Not a famous one. So when I say he's a country music singer, I'm not saying I'm the kid of like Chris Stapleton or Zach Bryan or Luke Bryan or some of these folks, right? He was just like a dude that sang at bars that would get hired, and he had like a massive drinking problem. So that sounds like kind of like an exciting upbringing, but really he was just an alcoholic who got really angry, and we lived in a RV where we traveled back and forth from different bars. So, a lot of my upbringing was like actually in kind of like bars in the Stockyards. I remember I was like 7 years old, and when old ladies are trying to give me a sip of an old, Long Island iced tea. I'm like, this can't be good. But I grew up in the Stockyards, and grew up kind of like on the north side of Fort Worth, just outside of the city. And, for me, I have these really great, I'd say, there's things that have happened over the last 9 years or last, 2 decades that I've been building that are like, I'm really proud of. You know what I mean? Like these are like, I'd say real achievements, and I can look back and say this is a life well lived. Prior to that, it was kind of like a darker time, kind of a rougher upbringing, lots of getting in fights, hanging out with the wrong kids. I dropped out of high school when I was a freshman because I just hung out with the wrong people and, had a terrible attitude. And I was trying to prove myself, to people who probably I should not have been trying to prove myself to. And, I got in a lot of trouble as a young person. And so I'd say I'm grateful for where I am now, but I'm also really, really grateful for those younger, darker years. Well, they weren't all dark. There were some good times when I was young. I'm not trying to like paint this like Eminem,
No, I got you.
8 Mile picture. It wasn't that bad, but it was bad enough to where I think I learned really, really early that the decisions that I make are going to materially affect my life. Not just in like a one-day scenario, but right then, immediate there. If I make poor choices, I will definitely reap the consequences of those choices. And I learned that really hard, and I learned that really fast. And I would say that put this fire inside of me to not live like that anymore. I wanted to change that direction. I remember, there was this abandoned car that I used to go sit in that was kind of close to my house.
How old were you at this?
Man, I must have been like 15.
15, okay.
My friends and I, I probably shouldn't say this on the podcast. We would go smoke weed in this car. And, it had like a moonroof. It was like abandoned, like old Acura or something, right? And, we're 15, we're not really doing anything with our lives. We're not even like studying or anything like that. And I remember I used to look out this moonroof and I used to ask my friends and I'd say, isn't there more than this? Like, is there more than what we are doing? And I would always ask questions like that. And I'll never forget. They would look at me and they'd be like, can we talk about like something else? Like they didn't want to talk about like the purpose of life or why we were there, or they didn't want to like really go through those things. And so for me, and I realize I'm coming out of the gate kind of hard here, but you know what I mean? Yeah, like, I think it's important. I always wanted to build a life that I would be proud of, and I wanted to feel worthwhile. I wanted to feel valued, and I wanted to love myself. And so it's been a long journey of like trying to figure out who I am, what am I good at, what value and offer do I have for other people and for the world. And so it's been kind of a cool journey. So that definitely led to a really great story of kind of like, you definitely had my hero arc or winter arc or whatever they say, right? But that's kind of where I came from.
I think I love that, especially like being around your friends and things like that, and asking yourself like, man, is there more to this? Mm-hmm. A lot of people they don't think like that. Yeah. As far as like, man, I can do more. I can be more. From that point on, before you got into college, what did your mindset change as to I'm trying to start leaning into a little bit more, or what was that like?
Yeah. So, I was about 17, and I got into a fight in a parking lot. It's in this Whataburger parking lot in a city called Keller. And this dude ran me over with his truck. And a helicopter came and picked me up. Yeah. A helicopter came, and I got care flighted to JPS Hospital in Fort Worth. And, like, I was tore up. Like, this thing had dragged me on the concrete for, like, 60 feet. So, like, skin is, like, hanging off my legs and stuff. It was pretty gross and pretty painful.
I bet.
Yeah. And I remember I was in this helicopter, and I remember praying that I would die. That's how, try not to get choked up here. That's how intense, like, my negative outlook was in my life. And so I didn't, obviously. And after about 8 months, like, I've been in a wheelchair for a little bit, not too long, but long enough to like recover. And I moved in with my dad because I was hurt, and it wasn't like a good relationship there. So I went into my room, and he had basically like taken all my furniture out. He had put like clothes there on the floor, and he was like, "You're not worth furniture." It's a terrible thing to say to your son. And basically, I just said, you know what? I can't do this. I can't live this way. And I want more. And so what I did was I had got a check, actually, from the insurance company. My dad had told me, when you get this check for being hurt, right, because that was the deal we made with the prosecutors. So apparently this kid's dad ran me over, like his family worked in the police department. They're like, look, you don't press charges against this kid and you collect the insurance money. My dad advised me to do that. So instead of like putting this kid in jail. And so I basically got this check in the mail. My dad said, when you get it, give it to me, because he wanted the money. He felt like he deserved it since he had been taking care of me all this time. I didn't do that. I didn't give him the check. It was written to me, had my name on it. So I took the check and I walked on foot from Fort Worth to Denton, where I walked into an IHOP and got a job.
You walked on foot from Fort Worth to
Yes.
Denton.
Yeah.
How long did that take?
Like all day. it was like 8 or 9 hours.
Wow.
It's not that far, you know what I mean? But it's far,
Yeah.
35,
Yeah.
35W. And so I basically went to Denton, and, my mom and my stepdad were living just outside of Denton. So I was like, hey, can I stay with you guys? But they didn't want me to stay there because I was kind of like always in trouble. And I told them, like, hey, give me a shot. Like, I will not let you down. Like, none of those people from the past life are going to come up here. I'm cutting off that entire section of my life. So I basically, I kept that promise. So they let me stay there for a few months, started waiting tables at IHOP. I got on my feet and started earning some money, $400 or $500 a week waiting tables.
Yeah.
I was happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, what do I do now? And so I didn't have a high school diploma, and I wanted to go to community college. And so I was like, well, I need to get a high school diploma. So I found this interesting little place called New Beginnings Christian Academy in Arlington, Texas. It was an online school. And what they do is you pay $300. You get a 2-week test that you take home. Like, they give it to you and you take home, and you answer it, and then you send it to them, and then they give you a diploma. It's a total sham. It's 100%. Total sham. It's a diploma mill. But you know what? They reclassified that school as a private home school. It's like this new classification so they could assign degrees to people who didn't get them. And so I used that degree to get into NCTC College in Denton. And for the first time in my life, I said, you know what? I'm going to try to learn. I'm going to be academic here. So I started taking all the remedial math courses. I started taking like English and all the different courses for like an undergrad degree. And I got straight A's. Now, it's community college, so it's not like the hardest thing in the world. You know what I mean? But I started getting straight A's. And I had a really interesting story. And so I basically was waiting tables for a few years, was studying at NCTC. And, I was really starting to think about, like, well, what do I want to do with my life? And that's when I read a book called The Alchemist. You read that?
No, I was actually referred to read that last week.
Yeah.
The Alchemist.
Yeah. So I heard about it because Will Smith, the actor, he was on a YouTube video, and he said this book changed his life. So I was like, well, if it changed his life, let's see if it can change mine. So I went down to this like little bookstore on the square in Denton, and I found The Alchemist, and I read it in a day. I highlighted everything in that book. There were so many good lessons in that book. It's basically just like a young shepherd boy, in search of his treasure, right? And so I started thinking about, like, where is Joseph's treasure? What dream do I have? And so I really liked, undergrad, at NCTC. I was like, I like school. Like,
What did you like about it?
I don't know if it was just redefining me as a person. Maybe the development of my character, like internally, like mentally was attractive to me. But I really like learning, and I didn't really think of myself as someone who liked learning before. But I think that's because I was basing who I was on opinions that other people had given to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't my own opinion. You know what I mean? And so I was like, well, I mean, I'm getting close to the end of my 2-year thing here at NCTC. What school do I want to go to? Because if I want to go get a 4-year degree, and I found this college in Dallas called SMU, and I was like, there's no way I'm getting in there.
Okay.
No way. And I applied, and I wrote this super long essay about my story. And I don't know if they read that or whatever, but they accepted it, and they gave me a scholarship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I got a scholarship to go to SMU, and that's when I got into the Cox Business School Finance program there, and started just it was totally eye-opening. My GPA started falling pretty quick when I got there because it was a much more difficult school. But finance was really fascinating to me. And so I started to really start thinking about a finance career, right? Like banking, private equity, venture capital. And that's kind of what led me down this path.
So what at this time when you finally get accepted into college, accepted into SMU, because you didn't even think you were going to get accepted at first, but then you got accepted and you got a scholarship.
Yeah.
What is your mindset then? Like, how are you looking at life now?
Oh man. I remember driving around campus. I had this terrible car. It was like a 1997 Chevy Cavalier. Like the back wheel was kind of bent. So when you're driving down the street, it kind of like you're like going sideways a little bit. Had this big dent in the door. It was super. I didn't realize how embarrassing that car actually was at the time. But I'm driving around town. I'm driving around SMU campus, and I'm seeing I'm just seeing a beautiful life. Like the campus. Have you spent much time on campus?
No, I haven't been, but I've been around the area, yeah.
It's like manicured lawns and beautiful trees and flowers everywhere and these big stately buildings and beautiful girls are walking around, right? You've got it looks like a lot of fun. People are like lounging on, like reading books and studying. And I said, wow, this life looks pretty great. Pretty excited. So I was feeling pretty pumped about it. Going to go learn. Great looking people around. I'm 22, so you know how it is. I was honestly really, really excited. But most importantly, my viewpoint going into SMU was a little bit different than I'd say a lot of the other kids that I met there. Primarily because for me, I was really, really focused on what is this for? Why am I at school? I'm spending a lot of time here. What's the purpose of this? And so for me, my focus was less on, I wasn't in a fraternity. I didn't do anything like that. I just kind of was going to nonstop going to internship interviews and trying to find work to support myself while I was there. And so, my mindset was really just very growth focused, Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. At any point that, did you feel like, man, I'm not, given from where you're from and your background and your history, did you feel like, man, I don't belong here? Or have some type of imposter syndrome?
Yeah, every day.
How'd you deal with that?
Ooh. It hurt.
Yeah.
And you just kind of dealt with it. It's an emotion that you have and you're like, well, this kind of sucks. And I definitely wasn't cool, but I did find a couple of really close friends that also were similar. I met this guy named George Knudsen. Shout out to my Austin buddy. He was kind of like me. We were both a couple years older than everybody else that we were going to school with. Because we were a little bit late to the party. Right. And we kind of stuck together. We'd hit the gym together. We would study together. He would help me with my accounting homework because I was terrible at it. He would always tell me, he's like, hey man, we got to study. I'm like, okay, let's go. He was really supportive. And I think finding a couple people that were in a similar place that I was in, really, really helped. We could support each other and become, learn together. You know what I mean?
Man, I just love how you always had that feeling inside you, man, I want more. There's more than this, and then you were able to continue to level up. What can you tell somebody who was once a younger you, going through it?
You don't know what you should do if you don't know where you're going to go, and but at the same time, it's impossible to know where you're going to go. All you can do is dream. You know what I mean? You can have a vision. And so I think for me, I would encourage people, and obviously this works for me, right? It's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. But for me, I was very, very clear about a vision on what I wanted to be and what life I wanted to build. If you ask anyone I went to school with in those days, they would ask us, what are you going to do when you grow up? Who are you going to be? I would sit there in class. My broke ass would sit in class with all these kids with all this money, and I would sit there and say, I'm going to build one of the largest, private equity firms in Dallas. And they'd be like, no, you're not. Right? Or maybe they didn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm assuming their thoughts, right? I don't know what they're thinking. But they weren't greeting it with applause. So I had very bold dreams. I wanted to start my own company. I wanted to be a CEO of my own thing. I wanted to build something. I knew that in my mind, I wanted to be a builder. I wanted to be that rags to riches story where, I was the guy who had nothing encountered a bunch of obstacles and then actually built a thing and pulled it off.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to a lot of YouTube videos, like where it'd basically be like, it's not just about attaining the thing because of money, because like money is a fickle thing. Like it's just a tool. You know what I mean? But like it's who you become in the process. I realize that's trite. Everyone kind of says this, but it is true. I wanted to know if I was able to do it. Am I capable of pulling something like that off? And so that was kind of, if I had to say like the mindset that people should focus on, that's kind of it, right? It's like have a vision that's like way bigger than you could ever imagine. Like try to just for a second pull your head out of your ass and like actually believe that you can do the thing that is like so impossible. Because most people, in my opinion, they're failing or they're not hitting the targets they want is because they're just like they're setting too realistic expectations. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Too realistic. Stop being so realistic. Because you're saying, what do people like me do? What do people like me achieve? It's like, no, that's not how you look at it. You need to dream bigger, dream bigger. And then like, put your castle in the sky and start building the ground up to meet it,
So, man, that's good. That's good. So like have like unrealistic expectations of yourself.
Yes.
And force yourself to be that.
Yeah. That's the definition of courage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like courage is saying like, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm scared. It may not work out, but I'm going to do it anyway. Right? I think courage is really important. Like be a dreamer, have courage to go for it and realize that like going for it isn't some big, you're not like immediately in a Major League Baseball game, swinging the bat and hitting the home run. It's practice every day.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. It's like trying to make that, middle school or high school team or a college team. Like that's the building to that, So it's like you have to be like very audacious, dream big, and actually go for the thing you want, but then realize that the building towards that is really just in a bunch of little tiny steps,
So before you're in college, before you even get your first job outside of college, you're already in the mindset of I'm gonna own my own thing.
Yes.
Right.
Totally.
Where did that come from? Were you watching YouTube videos at the time and you just seen that I want to be the CEO? Like I don't even want to submit to anybody. I want to have my own thing. Where's that mindset coming from?
It depends on how deep we go. It could probably, really be from a lot of places. I think for me, I've had so many experiences in my life, even at that time, where I would kind of see things that I felt like were obvious that could like make what we were doing better, but I would have like a boss or I would have someone who would say, no, that's not how we're going to do it. And I always felt kind of like even at IHOP, you know what I mean? Like you see managers and you're like, well, this would be a better experience for the customer. This would be probably an easier way to do this. Why are we doing it this way? And you realize really quick that if you're someone who is like curious about how things are done and how you could do things better, and you have ideas around that, the only way to really implement that is if you're the one kind of leading the show. Like you can offer up opinions, and it's a good thing to offer up opinions to people who are leading you. But at the end of the day, it's their call, And so for me, I wanted to see if Joseph Alexander versus the world, right?
Who's going to come out?
Who's coming out?
Yeah.
Or are we working together? Like maybe it's not a battle against the world, but you know what I mean. I wanted to be able to affect change, and I feel like I think that entrepreneurship was just kind of a natural tendency for me. Whenever I'm like with people, and not everyone, but like many times I find myself kind of like in more of a leadership role, not because I'm like loud and I am loud, but not because I'm like overbearing, but just because I'm thinking about like how the group could best accomplish a goal. And it's just a natural kind of like inclination.
Right. So you say you're like a natural born leader.
I guess. I mean, it doesn't sound very humble to say it that way.
No, I mean, somebody has to lead, somebody has to lead.
Yeah. But I mean, too, like, I think if you learn anything about leadership is just being a servant. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're serving, like, you're CEO of a business. That's not, like, really your job is to make sure that everyone else is taken care of. Like, you're finding the people to do the work. You're giving them the path that they need to be successful. You're making sure they have the finances to do that. You're making sure that they have the deals. And like you're trying to support everyone and make sure it all runs smoothly. Mm-hmm. It's not about like some ivory tower fancy elevator stuff, you know?
Yeah. I mean, what comes to mind when you say like leadership is being a servant? It's like I instantly think of like Jesus or like being a shepherd. Like you're caring for your
Yeah.
flock. You're making sure everybody is
Yes.
taken care of. Like you're worried about the common good of the individuals that you're leading.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like, I think one of the greatest skills of being a leader in any context is being able to understand what are the goals of the group, right? And what are the challenges and threats? Mm-hmm. Like a shepherd, right? You're aware of threats that could hurt this group, right? And you have to put yourself between the threats and those people. Like that's your job. You do the hard things so that they can live and be, you know, safe, so to speak, or so that they can do what they need to do and they can live a nice life and have a good career, okay. Right? But you're supposed to put yourself in front of these threats. And then also, you know, you have to be very empathetic towards like the subtle nuances of the group that make it successful or not. Mm. How are people working together? And you kind of have to play mediator as well, right? How are people working together? And, you know, you have to provide a place that they can be safe to, for them to be brave, you know what I mean? For them to take calculated risks.
Okay. And so let's continue on with the story.
Sure.
So now you're in college. You have your idea that you want to be like your own business owner. How did you get into your job?
Yeah. So after school, I was working for. I got into banking, so JP Chase, and so basically I was dealing with like higher net worth clients, and you know, kind of like a private client scenario. And I started, so the great thing about the training was that they really teach you how to communicate with folks that are really successful, right? And not just communicate with them, but build relationships with them. And I think that's, you know, for anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, being able to, I use the word sell, but I don't like the word sell, right? Because sell kind of has this negative like car salesman connotation with it. But being able to understand like what are people trying to accomplish, and then what resources do you have to help them, right? Or what skill sets do you have to help them? That's different than selling to me. That's more of like a business development. Like, hey, this is a need that you have, and you need help with this. I know how to help you with this, or I know how to pull the people together that can help you with this. And so, you know, JP Chase was very good about teaching us how to not only like ingratiate yourself with people, but to like honestly have a great relationship. Like when you call them, they pick up the phone and they're excited to hear from you. And so that training was really, really instrumental. And it served me very, very well as I went through banking. You know, I was like the top banker in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for like 2 years straight in terms of like new dollars brought to the bank.
So you were getting after it.
I was working very, very hard. Mm-hmm. And then I was like thinking about my future, and I still hadn't let go of this dream of private equity or VC. And I was leaning towards private equity because that's where the big dollars are, right? And I was just thinking from a money perspective, like where's the money how am I going to, you know, get rich, right? You know, it's, you know, so I started reading a lot of private equity books about like the great firms, like, you know, the standard like Barbarians at the Gate type books. And I bought a bunch of new textbooks on private equity and tried to really like freshen up my modeling skills. But the problem for me was I didn't want to sit in an Excel spreadsheet all day, right? And so all of the private equity like analyst tests, or like whenever you're interviewing somewhere, they'll put you through, they're going to test out your modeling skills and your accounting acumen. I just wasn't making the cut there. So my accounting skills were a little bit rusty. Because, you know, and at the bank, I was really more of like a people person.
Right.
Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously there's some financial knowledge there as well, but it's not as deep as someone who's like a hardcore financial analyst, right? And so I saw this job available at this or like basically for Naya Ventures. And this is the funny part. I'm making very good money. Mm-hmm. I'm like 26 and a half, right?
You're doing it.
And I see a job open at a venture capital firm called Naya Ventures, right? And it was an internship that paid $12 an hour. and I applied for it. And I'm making over $100,000 a year at this time.
Why?
Because I wanted to go do that. And this is a pretty crazy story. So I actually left the bank where I was making more money to go take an internship at this venture capital firm because I wanted to break in. I had saved up some money, and no one was hiring me as an associate or an analyst. I just wasn't getting offers, you know what I mean, because of the lack of the actual hardcore finance background or other reasons. You know, I'm sure there's probably plenty of reasons. So I take this job. It's a summer internship, leave the bank, and luckily enough, after 3 months, they hired me. So I became kind of like an analyst / associate at the fund. And they had just raised $50 million, and they had just deployed it in 17 portfolio companies. And so a lot of what we were doing was like evaluating pitch decks, looking at potential investments that the group wanted to place dollars into, working with founders they'd already invested to, like talking about the platform. They owned a couple other like technology, like incubator companies as well. And so they were like trying to help each of these groups like develop a lot of their tech platforms. And so basically, no one in the fund was handling marketing. No one was handling lead gen. No one was handling brand strategy or messaging. And I told my boss, this guy named Prabhakar, who's awesome, shout out Prabhakar. I was like, hey, do you mind if I start taking a little bit more of a lead role in how are we, like the ultimate outcome was how are we generating leads for the startups? And that led me into this path where I started like really saying, well, what is this marketing thing, right? Because I knew about marketing in general, but I didn't know a lot about it. So I basically bought like 50 different books on brand strategy and messaging and positioning, all the great books about messaging from Ogilvy and all these great folks. Read every single one of them, started taking a bunch of classes on like pay-per-click, how do you run ads to drive leads, how do you set up like WordPress websites, how do you use templates, and how do you shoot some videos? And I started just kind of in general learning about generalist marketing. And I started to implement some like LinkedIn growth marketing. This is the day back when LinkedIn, when you would have to, you'd ask someone to add you on LinkedIn and they'd say, well, I don't know you. You got to know someone to add them on LinkedIn. Do you remember those days? No.
I'm new to LinkedIn.
So, oh, are you? Okay, yeah. Well, back 15 years ago, people didn't want to add you on LinkedIn unless you were like their buddy already in real life. But I was like, what if we use this as like a lead gen tool? Because everybody was just starting to use it. So we started.
So you were early.
Yeah. So we started basically spamming a bunch of people with like basically we were using it like email marketing. I hired some kids from SMU as interns. They were like sending nonstop messages from these CEOs' accounts. And we actually started generating a ton of leads. And I was like, oh, wow, this is great. Each of our portcos has a bunch of leads with all of these large B2B businesses. And they're having all these fantastic meetings. And I'm like, well, this is working out really well. So we actually started to have like really, really solid results for our portfolio companies. Long story short, this fund was like very, very successful. And I left in 2017 to start the Uptown Agency. Because during that time, I said, I love this. I'm passionate about this. Surrounded by entrepreneurs. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. This is something I can do. Let's go.
Okay, so, man, so I see that, like, what you were talking about, that leadership come out of you naturally because you come into that that organization, and then you're already asking about what are we gonna do about marketing?
Yeah.
And then you're like, you know what, I'm gonna just take the lead and I'm gonna figure that out. Another thing that I noticed, which I want you to talk about, is like self-education as an entrepreneur, because like everything that you got into, you said, I got a couple of books, I read it.
Yeah.
You're the type of person, it seems like, before you get into something or when you want to get into something, you gather all the knowledge before you jump in, whereas other people might just jump in and then see what comes out of it. What can you speak on about self-education?
It boggles my mind that so many professionals leave college and like that was the last book they read. That like this is actually a very common thing. People will graduate from school and they go into their career and everything that they learn was just told to them by their boss. And so they're 100% reliant on other people spoon-feeding them information, spoon-feeding them opportunities. And it's like, how are you going to achieve big results with your life by waiting for other people to teach you new information or skill sets and then waiting for other people to offer you opportunities. To me, that's crazy. All the information that we need to learn new skills, whether it's finance or marketing or how to source product in another country, get things manufactured, distribute that, shipping, all these things that you need to build a company are 100% available online. And there's 100% people in every single community, if you're in a big city especially, that knows how to do this. It has never been more possible, especially, when I was doing all this, to buy a book, read the book, and understand the concepts at least. Even if you don't have like this foolproof thinking, you're at least, you've got a jump start on the competition. What do they say? Like if you read 5 books on any subject, you probably know more than most people about that subject. And that's a fact because you've basically done the heavy lifting to kind of like preemptively learn that. And then when you meet people who have those opportunities, they see you as knowledgeable, right? And I think that's the big thing people miss is they want someone to bring them the opportunity, show them how to do it, and that somehow their life's going to be incredibly successful. And that's just not how it works.
Okay.
It takes initiative.
Right.
I love that my first business was an agency because it takes a high level of personal agency to go proactively do something.
I guess that's why they call that term high agency.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That is now coming full circle as to why they say that.
Exactly.
A high agency person, somebody who is a self-starter and goes out and gets it.
That's a big value at our firm too, is, when we hire folks, we're looking for high agency people. You will not last long at the Uptown Agency if you're going to sit at your desk and wait. Do you know what I mean? What's that parable in the Bible where that guy gives someone some money? He gives a couple people some money and
the parable of the talents.
That one. What is that? What's that story? Do you remember?
Yeah, the parable of the talents, where pretty much it's God and he gives somebody one talent, he gives another person 3. I think it's 5. I'm messing up on the numbers, but then when he returns, he leaves, and then when he returns, the one with 3 flips it to 6. The one with 5 flips it to 10, and then the one who was given 1, he keeps it, and then he pretty much casts out the one who kept his own 1, didn't do anything with his talent.
Yeah, did he bury it in the ground or something?
Yeah, he buried it in the ground or something like that.
He sat on his hands. He did nothing. He just sat there. He was waiting. Yeah,
he got it taken away from him too.
Yeah,
another thing, he got taken away from him.
Yeah. That's employment here. You know what I mean? I think that's really important. We're looking for people who are builders. They take initiative. They want to learn. They want to go. They want to win. They want to conquer obstacles. That's exciting. We don't want people who want to sit on the bench.
Right.
And
so you transition now. You're coming up with your own agency.
Yes.
What were those early moments like for you? Were you excited? How were you feeling at this point?
So I was so naively excited. I felt just this the God of War in my chest. I'm I'm going to go build the next big agency, right? And but it was just me in my studio apartment. You know what I mean? Literally, actually, a photo came up this morning, and it was me in the studio where my bed is, and my kitchen is, and my desk is, and that's where the Uptown Agency was born. It was just me. And, I smartly, I left with a client. So there was a manufacturing company that I had found that needed some help with marketing. And so I started working with them. And then one of the startups from the fund, after I left, said, "Hey, we can't lose you. Can we just hire you? You used to work for the fund and help us. Now you've got this agency. Can you help us still and continue the work you were already doing?" So basically I left. Within 3 months, I had 2 clients. And they were paying me nothing. I wasn't making good money. But, it was an opportunity. So I started learning how to do I was basically learning. I was continuing to learn because at that point, I still didn't know a lot about what I was doing. And so the last decade has been incredibly instrumental in learning through failures. And I would say the on-ramp to be educated was much faster, especially in the very, very first couple of years. Learned a lot of hard lessons. And then I realized too, it's I don't have to do all of this myself, right? Really what I need is to start building a team of people who are incredible at this, right? I need to find the best designers, the best producers, the best ad strategists, the best media planning and buyers, media planning and buying folks. And that's what I started doing over the last 8 years, cobbled together like really fantastic folks. We've got just under 20 people now at the Uptown Agency, and we've actually really kind of like changed our whole focus away from even hiring like younger folks who don't have a lot of experience, and now we're hiring like way more experienced people who've been doing this 2 decades. They've run large accounts, and so that's been a big piece for us.
Okay. You posted a couple of quotes on LinkedIn and a couple of your sayings, kind of a little bit like Twitter type posts. I just want you just to explain the mindset behind these posts and see if anybody can grab value from them. The first one, talk about your concept of your second favorite poem, Doing the Thing.
Oh, yeah. So actually, I was listening to the Chris Williamson podcast a couple of years ago, who I love. He's got a great podcast. But he read that poem, and it's basically this idea of like, here's a list of all the things that people do to avoid doing the thing. You know, like thinking about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Like planning to do the thing is not doing the thing. And it's basically this big list of like, of all this stuff. And it's like, you know what? It's right. Like a lot of people confuse taking action and doing the work with all of these other things that make them feel like they're busy. It's just busy work. I'm going to plan to start a business. Like, yeah, you should plan. But at some point, you have to actually do it. You got to go to the Secretary of State and register a name. You've got to actually hire an attorney and formalize all your documentation. You actually have to hire a CPA. You need to do these things, right? You need to figure out how to put your services together. You need to figure out how to price. You need to find an office. You need to build a website. You need to start marketing yourself. There's a lot of things and a lot of steps that exist between A and B, and that's doing the thing, right? And so I love that mindset. I love that poem. I say it's my second favorite poem because my first favorite poem is If by Rudyard Kipling. If you ever want to read a good one, read that one.
If by Rudyard Kipling?
Yeah, it's called If. It's like 100 years old, but it's great.
Okay. The next one, the 10K hour gap, 10,000 hour gap between I had that idea and I built that company.
Yeah. So I think entrepreneurship is no different than marketing, right? And the fact that everyone has great ideas, I did another post too where I said, I'd rather have someone who can execute well on average ideas than someone who has great ideas but never gets any of them done. And even on the developer side of the house where people are building platforms and technology, like at some time you have to ship code. You know what I mean? You have to ship product. You have to ship a campaign. Like at some point, like the pedal has to hit the metal, and you got to actually, put boots on the ground and make something happen. So in terms of like the entrepreneurship or marketing campaign, it's great to have an idea, but someone's got to write it out. Someone's got to produce it. Someone's got to set up the media strategy. Someone's got to actually pull in all the earned media folks and, different outlets that are going to cover a thing. You've got to launch a campaign. You need to measure that campaign. You have to optimize that campaign. So from a marketing standpoint, there's a lot of work between this is a great campaign idea and then dollars hitting a client's account as revenue. You know what I mean? And building a business is the same way. A lot of folks talk about, and you see this in college a lot, right? A lot of like entrepreneurship groups in colleges, they're all thinking about ideas, right? They're excited, like, oh, what about a technology platform that, what does that comedian say? Is like a toilet that also makes sandwiches, something crazy that they're just trying to come up with an original idea, and I commend them for again, having a vision, but there's a reality here in which you have to build something that's worth building. And there's a lot of work between like, I've got an idea. How do I figure out if I have product market fit? How do I know who the right customer is to sell this? And then how do I actually technically build this thing and then distribute this thing and actually lay the plumbing for what will be a business, right? Right. So
right. It's kind of like that saying, like you can't drive a car without starting it. So
yeah. It's really just, doing the thing. You have to do the thing.
Okay. And then the last one, what are your thoughts on people who obsess over work-life balance?
Yeah, so I don't really believe in work-life balance. I think people will misconstrue that. I get some hate on LinkedIn for putting posts like that. And they'll say, like, because I work a lot. Like, I work every day. Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to the office. Now, I live half a mile from the office. You know what I mean? I pay more so I have a home that's half a mile from the office. It's not like I'm driving hours to the office on Sunday. But But look, if you're going to build something, it's going to require a lot of your time, and there have to be a lot of sacrifices. I think my choice is to sacrifice things that are not my family, right? So going out and drinking alcohol, like I don't really drink alcohol, right? I don't go party. I don't go to a bunch of networking events or mixer events. I could give two shits about that. What I care about is building my business and building my family. So I work crazy hours, 70, 80, 90 hours a week on average. But I still see my family. And people say, well, how can you do that? Well, number one, I get up really, really early, right? So I'm getting up at 4:30 or 5 every day, right? So if I leave the office at 6 or 7, I can still come home and have dinner with my family every single night, and I can still work 12 hours. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's about being disciplined. So like I'll still see them every day. The guy that says, oh, work-life balance. A lot of those folks, they just want to hang out with their friends all the time, right? It's like, and then they still don't see their family. So it's about priorities. You know what I mean? Like it's, for me, it's like I'm going to work very hard. And, like this past Sunday, we took my son to Cheeky Monkey here in Dallas. It's a little place where kids play. It's fun. It's like they crawl and stuff.
Like a Chuck E. Cheese or something?
Yeah, like a Chuck E. Cheese type scenario.
Yeah.
I took them there. I had lunch with my family, and I had a good 4 hours in that morning where we all spent time together. It was beautiful. And then I went to work, and I was there till 10:30, So I still had a 6-hour day on a Sunday. And that's how I say, like, I've arranged my life to where I can still see my family and work very hard. But yeah, again, like, you're not going to get very far if you're just trying to work 9 to 5, and if you're on easy mode, your results are going to be easy too.
Yeah, that's a bar.
Yeah,
for sure. I got 2 more for you.
Yes.
What part of entrepreneurship is glamorized that you think is actually dangerous?
Yeah. So, when I was at SMU, a lot of young folks would talk about. There's this idea in investment banking, they call it bottles and models. You know what I mean? So they talk about all the things that they're going to get. They talk about women, they talk about alcohol, they talk about clubs, they talk about partying, they talk about vacations, they talk about all these things that people think of when they think of money or success. But this is the thing that they don't realize. Those are actually the things that you have to trade to get there. You know what I mean? The finer things in life often it really challenges why you're doing a thing. I had to give up all those things so that I could be where I'm at. And I think that's the trade a lot of people don't realize is happening. You have to give up a lot of time, and those things aren't going to serve you. If you're focused on, fancy cars and going out and stuff like that, that's only going to pull you back. It's only in your way. It's going to make your mind cloudy, and you're not going to be as successful. But does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
That makes sense. Yeah.
I'm probably elaborating too much, but
no, that's perfect. Yeah, no, I get the idea, and that's all we have.
I'm really grateful. I want to encourage you, man. You're very bright. You're very bright. You're very personable, and this podcast is really fun. You're great with people. So
I appreciate that.
If I could see into your future, I would say that I could see you as like the next Chris Williamson, or like, who knows? Who knows how far this podcast will go? But I see bright things for you, man. I'm really grateful.
I really appreciate that. I'm grateful for you too, man.
All right, bro.